I was unemployed for a month, which is such a weird time. It was like Tiger King and like just some weird stuff.
Dark
Yeah,
times.
just like that's what I TikTok was coming to be a thing.
Mm.
I learned a TikTok dance. Um,
Wow.
my unemployment, and then so I applied
Do
for
we
it.
do we have time to ever?
No.
Sorry,
Is
go
there,
ahead.
does this, can we put this, can we link this in the show? Is there anything, Emma? Welcome back to Pushin Performance. We are super excited to have our second guest on the show, Coach Emma Schmid at Fitty with Schmitty on Instagram. Emma is a performance coach for Exos in Seattle, primarily working with the general population. She got her start at a physical therapy clinic in North Carolina, but since then has been kind of around the map, working with members of the general population, working with athletes. She's a UNC Dub graduate, an FRC practitioner, one of our favorite content creators out there on Instagram, and in our opinion, a true student of the game. But JT, what do we get into in this episode with Emma?
Fitty with Schmitty, one of my favorite names. Emma talks about how she applies the FRC system into her own training, how she adds new systems into her own coaching philosophy. And then she talks about her experience in the Exos headquarters, which is fun to hear about.
Mm.
And then we get into our rapid fire questions from Emma. Rapid fire answers, I guess.
Some good ones in there. Some good little nuggets. But no, this episode was a blast to record. Had a lot of fun with Emma, so we hope you all enjoy it. JT, I don't know about you. I'm pretty excited. Special guest, Emma Schmid. Emma, did I totally 1000% should have double checked. Is Schmid how you say your last name?
Yeah, I'm actually really like snaps for
Okay.
you because it's hard for a lot of people to say, believe it or not. Like my whole life, my whole childhood, it was like Smit, Simid. So sometime I got like some random word that was not even close. So
Okay. Well,
good
I
job.
mean, maybe we can unpack that.
For a second, I thought Emma's name was Fitty for a while.
Do y'all want to know? Do y'all want to know the origin
Yes.
of that name?
Yes.
Yes.
1000%.
Okay, so the Instagram handle actually was not me, unfortunately. I wish I could give myself all that credit, but it was one of my friends from college. Because I was thinking about starting an Instagram because I was just like doing stuff and I just wanted to post what I was doing. And like I didn't know what I was doing back then. But yeah, so she's like, you should call Fitty with Schmitty. And I was like, that's so great. I love it. And so that's how it started. And it's been there since I was probably since like circa 2017.
Oh,
It's been
Okay.
a very slow growth on Instagram.
hey,
Okay. So you've been in the content game for almost 6 years now?
The thing is, though, I wasn't really trying for the first 3. I was very like on there sometimes because like Instagram really only started to take off. I feel like not like pretty recent, and I could be wrong.
I think after they introduced IG Live or TV, and then they started really
Yeah,
get the algos going crazy. So
yeah. Like I look back and it's super cringe. I'm like, well, this is staying because it's like a part of my journey, right? It's basically my life is just documented on Instagram if you go back far enough.
this is true.
That's a cool way to think about it. Honestly, I never really thought about it that way because I look back. JT and I were talking about this yesterday, but we look back on our college photos or our first fitness posts, and it's like, what were we thinking? What were we doing? But I don't know. I feel like for you specifically, you've been putting out good quality stuff on different topics for a long time now.
Well, I
So-
appreciate you. You guys, y'all only knew me though, probably like when I actually started taking it seriously, which is when I started working with Exos. Before then,
Yeah.
no, I didn't really telling you. Like we all go through a period of our lives where we're new and we don't know what we're doing, but we're still putting. We're just kind of like putting stuff out there. I was just like documenting my journey of like what I'm enjoying at the moment. But did I really know what I was doing? Absolutely not.
Well, that's where I'm at right now currently, Emma. So I'm gonna need your guidance there.
Seriously.
But speaking of reels, I've been wanting to ask. You have all these bangers, like these tracks that you put on the reels. So me
Sheesh.
and Phil were talking about the other day. We're just curious, what are like the top five artists or tracks that you have like in your rotation right now on your, I was gonna say iTunes, but is that even a thing? On your phone?
On that iPod Shuffle.
On the iPod Shuffle.
Hey.
Top five.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. My reels don't get a ton of love, but they get love from the right people, and that's all I care about.
Hey.
What matters.
Right? But so it's funny. So what I decided to do recently was I just recently got into like the 2010s hip hop rap. I don't know, it's very nostalgic, and so I decided to kind of keep that theme for my reels because I'm like, I don't care anymore about the views on like this sound. I'm just gonna put like a sound that I like. So that's kind of where the Instagram theme has been coming, and it's like a little plug. If you're listening and you haven't seen my reels, you can go look at them, and they're like I had some Soulja in there. I was laughing so hard when you were like, not Soulja.
I was fired up. I was like, because at first I listened to it on mute. I think I put it in my story. Or no, I listened to it on mute a couple times, and I went to put it in my story, and then the audio played, and I was like, "What is happening? What is going on right now? What is happening?"
Yeah, so you're welcome. But as far as like my current like personal usage of music, it's usually like workout stuff, and then I don't know if y'all have this on Spotify, but it's like your daily list, like your daily listening.
Yeah.
And it puts together some like crazy like one day it was like angry death rage, like, and then the next day it was literally like country sad banjo, and it was just like, so I have a wide array of music, but top 5 would be Sleep Token. Sleep Token. I don't know what genre to even say that is because it's kind of a mix. It's like a beautiful ballad, but it's rock, it's like metal, but then there's some piano.
Is that what they refer to as like indie music? I never really understood what indie music was, but
I don't even know.
That's not indie music, JT.
Might be. I'll do my research.
Moving on. We're moving on.
No such thing as stupid questions. I like a little Hardy. Have y'all heard of Hardy? He's a country guy that brings in some rock into his music.
Okay.
I want to say yeah, but I think I'm just thinking about Tom Hardy, so I'm gonna say no.
Check him out. It's really cool. It's like country, but then there's like some scream that comes in at some point, and I'm like,
okay,
this is beautiful. And so I have like, I'm going back to my like high school rock phase. I like Bad Omens.
Okay. I got some Bad Omens on mine.
Yeah, they're good. My sister's obsessed, so I got all this from her. And then let's see, Never Tell, which I don't know if y'all have heard of them, but they got some good stuff.
Like a punk?
Yeah.
I think I heard them.
Yep. Yeah, check them all out. You'll be so thankful, like, for your next workout.
Okay.
And then I gotta put a plug in here because my little brother just produced his first song all on his own and put it on Spotify, and I can't listen to it without crying. So it's beautiful. It's like, he's a very not Zach Brown. What's it, like Luke Brown? What is it? I always get
Luke Combs?
No.
Luke Bryan?
Luke Bryan is a very Luke Bryan voice.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your bro's name?
Jackson. He goes by Jackson now, so it's Jackson Schmid.
Hell yeah. All right.
I'm just gonna plug the boy,
1000% hitting the show notes. 1000% checking that out. Gotta show love how you're supposed to.
I'm like bothering him to produce another song. I love it.
Hell yeah. That's
Great.
super tight. I love the metal music.
I know.
Yeah.
I just got put on game. I will definitely
Free game.
do some research. You
Yep.
know,
Free game.
her name's Fitty, but she keeps it 100
We're
all
moving.
day.
We're moving.
I gotta put that in my Instagram bio.
We're moving on. JT's been rapping his whole ass off.
Something in the water.
Something in that Bay Area water got you absolutely slapping. But let's stick on Instagram, since that's how JT and I kind of first were introduced to you and your content. And obviously, I think probably from an informational standpoint, the thing you talk about the most, or at least from our perception, is probably FRC related concepts. And we've had this conversation, you and I, but I think it'd be interesting for the listeners to kind of hear your progression from starting with FRC, 3, 4, however many years ago it was now, and then to how you use it now, right? And where you're at with it now.
Yeah, I've done a lot of self-reflection on this, and actually this podcast came at such a perfect time because I was listening to this podcast yesterday on the DGR podcast with David Gray, and his guest was Ian Marco, and everything Ian was saying is exactly where I'm at right now with the FRC, like FRS systems. And so, yeah, I started with FRS systems like when quarantine started, actually. So that's actually, so little background is like I used to work in physical therapy, and then I got furloughed for a month because of quarantine. And then I started working with Exos, and then that was all remote. And so I just did so much remote learning because I had so much free time. And so that's when I got introduced. And I just ate it up, like immediately, just like went down a huge, like head first rabbit hole with it. And it was great. And it helped me really understand the body a lot better and how stuff should move independently. Emphasis on that word, like independently of the rest of the body. And so I went through my FRC, and then I did some kin stretch because I also, like, in conjunction of working with Exos, I started my own business working at TPA, the Performance Academy out in Cary, North Carolina. And I worked with a lot of youth athletes doing strictly mobility work, like lots of baseball kids. So I did like group sessions of like sometimes 20 kids. And so that was pretty crazy, just having their attention spans and doing that stuff. And I'd work upwards of like some pro guys as well, which was my first time ever doing a group exercise class, let alone FRC stuff, was with these pro baseball players. And I was like, can I cuss on here?
Yeah, you can say whatever.
You do whatever the hell you want.
Shit my pants. Like, I was so scared.
That sounds so nerve-wracking.
I was so scared. I literally wrote out everything I wanted to say, touch base on, typed it up in notes, like memorized everything. I was very prepared, but that's how I learned, honestly, was just practicing on a lot of people. And like, I feel like a lot of coaches here can understand or relate to the fact of like not really knowing a concept great, or you feel like you don't know it well enough to teach it, but there you are teaching it, and then you make some mistakes and then you learn, and then like you just know it like the back of your hand eventually.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happened.
Well, let me pause you right there. I'm just curious. Why do you think you were scared?
Well, because and I've talked with Phil about this, that imposter syndrome. It's like, why me? Like, why am I the one doing it? Why do they think I'm good enough to do this? Because in my eyes, looking at other people, I was not as good as the other people I saw. So I don't know. You kind of get in your own head about that, but then you do it, and then you have like this new level of confidence of like, okay, I did that. I can, and I from there was like, I like to feel uncomfortable because I grow every single time. So that's kind of when that whole thing started. I never really put myself out there because where I was previously working, just confidence was always like, I came into work just expecting to get yelled at basically. And like my self-worth and like confidence as a human was terrible. So coming into Exos and like they valued my opinions and stuff and like wanted me to contribute, I was like, you want me to like, are you sure it's okay?
Hmm.
So I did a lot. There's a lot to unpack there too.
Yeah.
But like, kind of like going through that level of uncomfort and like discomfort, and then like moving past it was really big for me to get my confidence in my craft, I guess. But then a few years kind of went by. I moved to Seattle, and I like started to kind of question where I don't know. I was experiencing a lot of back pain, and it was because I was doing a bunch of mobility work, and I just don't need that. And so I actually hired a coach, and he, which we can touch on later, but like he
Mhm.
really helped me just focus on strength. And he was actually Louis Simmons' last intern before he
Oh,
passed.
damn.
Fun fact.
Fun fact, yeah. Cooper Napoli, Delta 5 Performance, great human. And he really helped me get out of that hole. But kind of like, I'm kind of going all over the place, but
Wait,
that
so
being,
to clarify, the mobility work that you were doing was from the teachings that you've learned through FRC?
yeah. And so where I'm at now is I think it's a great system. I just think it's more of like an individualized, like you isolate an area versus integrate. Like it's not like, that's why I kind of did my little FRC like integration, because
Mhm.
it's like, how do you isolate this area, and then but how do I use that with the rest of my body, or like how does my body, like it doesn't really touch on like locomotion or like how everything works together. And so I think it's great on a rehab standpoint of like building capacity and kind of bridging the gap from rehab back to training and performance. But in an everyday tool, I don't really use it. I use cars every day, and I think that's a really useful, powerful tool. Um, I'll use pails and rails if the client absolutely needs help on like one area, like they
Mhm.
need. And I don't even use it to really, except for my one client who wants to do the splits right now. I don't really use it to increase range of motion, just because.
So
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt there, but just kind of looking at the timeline that you mentioned, you went through FRC, you were learning about it, and then you were doing mobility work yourself, and that's what kind of caused some back issues.
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
right? Okay.
Just doing a bunch of that, and I'm already hypermobile, which I didn't really realize.
Hmm.
I'm just, you gravitate towards stuff you're good at.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so I was having these reoccurring back spasms, and it was basically my inability to stabilize at the pelvis on a very like minute level. Cause like an RDL would look amazing. This is where you get into like that finite, like coaching with your clients who look like they are doing an RDL perfectly and they still have back pain,
Yeah.
you know? And so I really honed into like just focusing. So my coach and I went through like an eccentric, isometric, concentric. Like that's what I've been working through like
Mhm.
for
Oh,
all
I
my
thought
stuff.
you were gonna say.
No, she was going. No, She was going triphasic. You thought she was going semen. No.
But no, oh god, no. I feel bad for him though. Like he just kind of like shits on him. Like I just wonder how he
He knows
does.
what he's doing. He knows what
Oh,
he's doing. He's a smart guy.
he's wiping off his tears with thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
He's chilling.
If
He's
there's
chilling.
one thing real quick, if there's anything that coaches can learn from our boy Seaman is really how to get attention.
Dude,
That's
yeah.
like one thing I don't think
Yeah.
anybody really looks at. But anyway, you were going through triphasic
Yeah.
with your coach.
Yeah, and that was like a year ago. So really my thoughts on FRC have shifted as this is something I just my bread and butter I do with my people all the time, to like a tool that I, in a lens that I use. And so
Interesting.
yeah, I think it's very great, but it's definitely not everything. And so I'm digging myself out of that hole right now.
So just curious, what clicked from being in that hole to now like, oh, there's more to this and there's a little bit more nuance I need to understand.
I realized I didn't want to be the mobility coach. I don't want to be known as that. I like kind of painted myself into a corner, and I didn't like that. I I just feel like I am a lot more than just that. I have a lot more interest than just that, but I'm good at it. So I kind of leaned into what I tried to kind of veer away from it for a while, but I was like,
Yeah.
I can't run away from what I'm good at. So I still, post about it, but it's more from a place of I don't think it's everything anymore. I think it's a
Yeah.
great tool.
Yeah. And I think
When
like
used,
when, yeah. And when you like with the kind of content, the educational content you put out, it is through that lens. Like, hey, here is a very specific hip exercise for a very specific purpose. And like, here's why you should use it. Here's when I might use it with a client versus, hey, everyone's hip sucks. Everyone should do this type of stuff. Not saying that that's what people do, but that content does exist out there. So like with that in mind, like practically, tactically, if you touched on some things, like you touched on potentially using pails and rails, you touched on potentially using cars every day, but like if you're working with a new client, what does your current assessment process look like, and then how might you integrate some of these FRC or FRS system concepts into their overall program?
yeah, that's such a good question. The evolution of my assessments, it's still an ongoing thing, which I'm sure it is with y'all as
Yeah.
well. And that's actually why I wanted to go to Exos headquarters, was to kind of try and like refine my intake process. But I used to do a total body assessment of cars, and I was like, this is taking forever.
Whole body. We talking wrist.
I'm talking everything, dude. And so I'm telling
Talking
you,
knee.
yes, I would do patella. Does it wiggle? Like, well, that's what I thought I needed to do as an FRS practitioner.
Yeah.
I have to do all these things, but it took so much time. And so I did that for a while, and I was like, this is a lot. And then, so what I do now is kind of like simple table tests. So like I'll start with somebody standing. I'll get their static posture. I'm like, this is the easiest thing you're going to do all day. Just stand here. And then I just kind of look front view, side view, behind. So I did like the static posture. Um, I'll do just kind of global movement. So I'll have them standing, doing like just standing rotation. See how they rotate standing, hands overhead type of stuff. And then I'll have them lay on the ground, and then I'll take them through like a table test where they go like shoulder internal, external rotation, hip internal, and external rotations. And I'll do the hip also seated. So I'll get the hip in different positions. And then what else do I do? Just some basic movement patterns. So basically nothing crazy.
Okay. And why? So
So
like,
more of the bigger joints that you're really looking at then.
Yeah, and then
Shoulder, hip.
so then I get like an idea of how they move, and then like in that same assessment, I'll take them through a basic simple workout, like upper push pull, lower push pull. Um and I'll also do like some glute, like this, I kind of missed this part, but I'll do like some glute bridges, spinal segmentations as well. So like that's one of the FRC things I'll use in my assessments. It's just to see how the spine is segmenting and where it's not.
okay.
Yeah, and then like moving forward into the programming, everyone will always do their shoulder, spine, and hip cars like for their warm-ups all the time. And then I'll kind of within that same warm-up, I'll put some different various movements in there that they need. And then I like some passive range lift-offs like for shoulders. So like before I do bench or something like that, I'll have them do like prone, shoulder external rotation, passive range lift-offs, and basically kind of sprinkle in the FRC stuff throughout the warm up. And then if they need it as a complementary movement, I could use that.
Yeah.
But I don't really as much. So it's pretty like minimal of like what I'm doing, but the cars are non-negotiable.
Okay. So for those out there, like I don't, we probably didn't talk about this and we should have talked about this, but like JT and I's mission is taking some complexity and trying to simplify, which is essentially what you are doing right now. Like people look at the FRS or FRC system and they're like, I have to only do this, or this can't fit in other areas, right? This can't play nicely with strength training, when in reality, they're all just, like you said, they're tools, right? And they're using them as such. So for looking at cars, so, how would you describe cars? And then for you and your clients, why do you say they're non-negotiable?
Yeah, so the cars are really powerful because it gives you that daily assessment of where their joints are, where their nervous system is. Because like, you can sleep on your arm funny and it just feels like shit one day. So I just like don't. I'll then know at what point they're feeling discomfort, and then I'll know like exercise selection. Like, okay, maybe we'll change your like, overhead press to maybe like a landmine incline, like something that's not going to be as aggressive on the shoulder. And so it gives you that daily snapshot of where your client is, which I like. And then there's also, so I have a client right now who has not great shoulders, cannot do a full shoulder car. And so I will literally have him do partial reps and just floss through where he can. Like I call it like flossing. And he calls the green zone is like the good zone. And then he's like, I'm like, okay, don't go like past pain. So he calls out the red zone. So we have like our own code.
I love that.
Yeah. But also cars are just a great way if you are dealing with some type of pain to just help keep the blood flow moving through that joint space, since it can be hard to keep, the blood flow, nutrients, all joint lubrication. If you don't use it, that stuff's gonna maybe, tighten up due to like the nervous system like protecting that area. So I use it for everybody. What was the second part of that question?
Why was it non-negotiable?
Okay,
And
yeah,
that was basically, I think you basically ironed that out right there.
yeah, exactly. It's like I always tell them it's like flossing your teeth.
Mm.
You gotta do
Flossing
it.
them joints.
You gotta
Awesome,
floss them
guys.
joints. Those Jones,
Awesome.
as
Good job.
JP would say.
Oh my God. Wait. So going back, I remember, I don't know how it came about. We don't have to go through that today, but I know spending a week at Exos was pretty recent. So just curious to hear your experience. I mean, I know you've been there before. Probably a lot of questions within that, but yeah, go in and just give us a nice little spiel of your experience there, and I think we can riff off of that.
Yeah, actually, it was so funny. I got there and I got to the hotel I was going to be staying at, and it was so gross. And I was like, "Oh Lord, what have I done? Like I'm by myself. Like this is not a group experience." And then I went grocery shopping, so I was like, "Shit! Like I haven't even thought about this part. Like I need food." And so I went grocery shopping, and I kind of had a panic attack there, and I called my boyfriend, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, is this a waste of my money? Like,
Oh no.
what am I doing? I'm like all alone. And so I ended up canceling that hotel reservation, and they didn't even charge me, and I stayed with my aunt. So
Oh yeah.
that part was great. So beyond that little like mini meltdown, my experience was amazing. I loved it so much. Like all the coaches there were just super welcoming, and like they just let me kind of so I was there for observing. So I hung out with Drew a lot. I don't know if y'all know him. He's the baseball coach.
Shout out Drew Hypehoff.
He needs
Great
some
guy.
love on the Instagram for sure.
Dude,
I got some content of him, so I'm like, if you want me to make your reels, I got you.
shout out Drew. Yeah, we need to get Drew on here. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's so smart, and I learned so much from him. So I spent a lot of time with him. And he has the baseball guys. Like I think they're college, and maybe one or two of them are pro right now. So it was really cool because they're in like the off season right now, and so I had so many questions about programming, and he just this one day I asked him about programming. He just gave me like this whole spiel on how he programs, and it was so great. So basically, he like uses the force velocity curve depending on like where they are in the season. And so, and Rich is also great. Shout out Rich Pruitt. Thank you
Shout
for
out
letting me
Rich.
share. But basically he says like you climb up the slide and then you slide down. So they kind of like start somewhere in the middle, like work with like hypertrophy, where was it? I have it in my notes, but basically hypertrophy, work up to strength. And then so you have that like that base, you work up to max strength, and then you slide down as you get closer to like that speed strength,
Mm.
before you get into like in season stuff. So I
Mhm.
thought that was because I love visual stuff, so that was
Yeah.
great.
I love that. I love that analogy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
so
good
that
one.
was cool. And I can also share my notes with y'all if you want eventually.
Yeah. So let me paint the picture a little bit better. You're working at a corporate space. You've been to Exos and you're like, oh, I want to spend a week at Exos. What?
Mm.
And you said you're there for observation. What was like the lens that you were trying to observe through? Like, what are you trying to get out of it that week,
Yeah,
knowing that you are working at a corporate space? What are you trying to get out of that whole week?
yeah, that's a really great question. So right now my clientele ranges from people who have never been in a gym to like beach volleyball player. So there's a big spectrum there. But one thing I feel like I've missed out a lot on in my education is just the in-person experience because when I did my college internship, I did it at a physical therapy clinic and I'm not doing that now. So I just kind of feel like I missed out on the in-person aspect of being in performance
Mm.
and like the exo side of performance because I've always been in the corporate space.
Yeah.
And so I really just wanted to see what the intake process was like. How programming has always been like a big thing of like, I feel like I could always improve on. And I have since I've worked where I am now with the high volume of clients that I have. So like having a high volume, like getting more reps in has helped me. But I was like, I want to see this done in like the sports performance setting. And so the intake process was cool because how they do it at Exos headquarters is they have physical therapists there who do like the assessments on the athletes, which is so freaking cool. And I wish we could do that because
Yeah.
they have a uniform way to assess and then know what to look for. And there's no guessing and trying to refine your intake process. It's like they know they're doing their job and then they relay the information that they see that you need to work on to the coaches and they get to do their job.
Mm.
Because this is kind of a side tangent, but I feel like a lot of coaches feel like they need to be a physical therapist too, which you can't wear two hats. Like you didn't go to school for that.
Yeah.
So you can problem solve, but it's not our place to treat as a physical therapist.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, I see that a lot in like the FRC stuff. Just
Yeah. I mean, that's like, and I mean, I'm sure JT's fallen on that trap. I've fallen into that trap. You know, you want to, also side note, that's the biggest cup I've ever seen in my life. You want to just like, like you're drinking a Greek yogurt. You, you want to help the person in front of you, right? So whatever they're presenting you, whether it's pain, whether it's lack of range of motion, whether it's a previous injury that they're they half-assed through PT, like you want to genuinely improve, you know, that person's capabilities in front of you. So like looking at, and like as two people who teach the Exo system all the time, I always say like headquarters is like our ivory tower. This is like the quote unquote best case scenario. So then for you, how do you take that concept of like, all right, you know, I don't have a PT at my location, but how can I take this idea of a consistent intake, good communication, like from the intake side of things, how can you take that idea and start to apply it now where you're at?
yeah. And yeah, that's the thing is like obviously we're obligated to help our person to the best of their ability. But then they're like it's a very fine line, I feel like. And we
Yeah.
just have to know when it's fit for the person to refer out. And so what I've started to do with my intake process, I haven't had any new clients since, but I like the whole they kind of go global movements first and then break it down to the more intricate things. And so that's kind of where I'm going to start like refining my intake process too, I think is starting with a more global movement pattern, like a few, um, focusing on like shoulder, spine, hips, and then kind of break it down into those subcategories. I think is a better word, subcategories, and see like how they're moving on an individual. So you see how everything's moving together, and then how everything moves separately, which I
Mhm.
think is very helpful. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah.
On that note, just curious of if you had any limitations that you thought you had in your gym prior, whether it be like program design, exercise selection, and then going through or experiencing that week in Exos. Just curious if there's anything that stood out where like, oh, I don't really have limitations here, but it's more of I can take these principles from whatever they were designing in the program and take it back to my limited space at in the corporate side.
Yeah. So if I think I understand it right. So your question is like how they program versus how I could maybe program like that. Is that the
Yeah,
question?
yeah. Like
Okay.
if there was any ways that you wished you could program at your site, but then you actually can, or if you still can't. I'm just curious to hear like your thought process of now being in two different environments in terms of programming.
Yeah. So when I was in headquarters, what I really liked was that I understood how the Exos training system is more fluid than I learned initially, which I understand it's helpful to learn it as a more rigid structure because
Mhm.
then it's reinforced of okay, like this is the structure, but this is not you're not like tied to having to fill in the every single blank. So I
Mhm.
think that was huge. I got to sit in to at for with Coach Jair for the phase 3. I haven't even taken phase 2 yet, but I was there when phase 3 was there. So he let me sit in and it was great because it's all about programming. And I was like, this is great. So I got to learn about it and then see it in the gym. And so basically what I took away from that was that they don't spend a ton of time foam rolling. They kind of get to the main point of like, okay, the warm up is basically a circuit. And I really liked that. So like in some of the, so I also watch like the group, what is it, semi-private adult group sessions, and which
Mhm.
is very similar. It's like exactly what I do. And so basically their warm up sometimes is just kind of like melds into the workout, which was
Yeah.
cool. So I've actually started to change my warm up structure of okay, I will do 2 main mobility movements in my class. This is for my group classes of like I'll hit like the T spine and shoulders and then hips with 2 movements, like global movements, and then I'll for the activation stuff, I'll pick 3 things and do them as a circuit. So
Mm.
that way they're kind of getting heart rate up a little bit more, getting raising core temperature. And I really liked that because I've never done it like that before. It was more of like a laundry list of like
Yeah.
of stuff that progressively got to that point, but like now it kind of refines my warm up even.
Yeah.
So that was a huge thing for me. And then like we don't have turf. So I'm not going to be doing like absolute speed and stuff, but it was cool to see that stuff.
Yeah.
There's just so many things like the regen days. They have every Wednesday is a regen day. And so I took a lot away from the regen day, just like different mobility things.
Mhm.
I watched like the NFL free agent guys. I learned a
Yeah.
lot from Coach Mo on that one.
Shout out Mo.
What things did you take away from the region day?
Just like a lot of different like banded mobilizations that I don't ever do.
Mm.
And I really liked them and just like different variations of movements I already do, like using the bench as a prop for like your adductor stretches, hamstrings, just kind of that variability of like using the same movements but just putting them in a different base position, which I really like. So it kind of
Mhm.
gives it that like that uniqueness, I guess. You're not doing the same thing every day,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, and just stuff like that was really great. So it was also reassuring to me because I got to like compare my programming to that, and I'm like, oh, so I'm not far off, so I'm doing pretty good. But the last thing that was really big to me was you don't have to have like a complementary movement for every movement. And like I remember when I first started working at Exos, I thought every movement needed a complementary movement. And I'm like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be here forever.
People just
What do you
stretching
mean
the whole
by
class.
a complementary movement?
So like my like dumbbell bench press doesn't need a follow up unless the person needs it. But it's like I don't have to do a T spine rotation or like maybe shoulder external rotations or like a reach and sweep, whatever it is. Like I don't have to unless that's what the person needs. And I actually saw a lot of that in like the off season programming. So like they do a strength with a complementary strength complementary, which makes sense, and they just do it as that.
Hmm.
Like that makes sense because like they're just coming back into training.
Yeah.
But then as you ramp up training, keep the main thing as, shout out Vernon Griffith. But but it's like it's that. So like for my programming, I'm at a point where I just kind of do like one movement and I keep it that movement. That's what the focus is for my first strength block. I'm not gonna like put fluff in there if we don't need it.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think like and JT and I have talked about like mimicking programs and things like that. And like you called out, when you first learn something, it's very easy to learn like these are the rules. You do pillar prep, you do movement prep, like you do X, Y, and Z, and this is how you write a workout. Right? Your primary block is your primary strength movement, complementary, secondary strength movement, complementary. Right. But then over time, kind of it seems to mirror your path with the FRS system as well, where it's like you start to realize like I don't have to do anything a specific way per se. Like I want to do what works and what's like you said, what does this person in front of me need?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like maybe they do need some sort of like either active rest or time between sets, but like maybe they don't. Right? Like maybe they don't. So it's how can I assess first and foremost who's in front of me and what do they need?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just easy to get in this trap of like feeling like you have to conform to every single methodology. But then, like, the more you learn, it's like, oh, so now I'm really stressed out and I have to do like 2 hours worth of stuff. And it's like, no, you can, like, kind of, it's a blueprint. They're all
Mm-hmm.
blueprints. And then you kind of just pick and cherry pick and like kind of make like your own thing, which is really fun. So it's basically always an experiment until you figure out what really works.
Yeah, I think that's if anyone could take anything out of this episode, that's like such a huge takeaway is that we are literally just experimenting. Like I feel like there's, we use models and we use all these figures to think that we understand humans really well, when in reality we don't as well as we'd like to think that we do. So it's like I'm just gonna guess and check.
Yeah,
We've been doing that since math in fifth grade.
right. And it's like I really like coming back to this. Like it's very humbling, and it's like, okay, you see all these people out there with these different methods, and they're really awesome. But at the end of the day, it's like they had to guess and check too. So
Yeah.
we're all
Only method we're doing right now is a scientific one. Right? Think about it. Test, retest. Let's try it again.
facts.
I wish I could remember who created the scientific method so we could shout out our dog, but I
This
can't.
is full of shout outs.
Just we show love on the show. That's all we do. We show love on this show.
That's
We
That's
it.
did.
all.
That's all we do.
That's all that is. That's all it is. But I'm super curious in for me talking to a lot of coaches and they say, hey, how do I get into sport? Or how do I get into sport performance? How do I work with a pro team? How do I work with, X, Y, and Z? How do I get into Exos? And one of the first things I say to them is like, hey, volunteer your time. Like volunteer. And I know it's not feasible for everyone to volunteer their time for free all the time. I 1000% get that. But, hey, like reach out to people, volunteer your time and minimally approach other people's programming, approach other training systems with an open mind. And then I never hear from those people again. Like 9 times out of 10, it's just like they just don't ever follow up. So like, hearing this story, hearing about your experience in just going out there with an open mind and just being like, hey, I want to learn. Like, how did you personally get to that point where it's like, I'm just here to learn. Like, I'm no ego. I'm showing up with an open mind.
I feel like I've always felt that way. I just always have. It's been like a good thing and a bad thing. And this is actually, I'm really happy you asked this because it's like, at what point are you good enough to like to feel like you deserve to be where you are? Like you kind of have to just like believe in yourself at some point and know that you've done the work. Like, at what point are you not really so much a full-time learner, but you're also a teacher? Like, we're always going to be learners, but like, at what point can I call myself a teacher? And so for me, I think it started with the whole like first, my first big girl job at the clinic, and like having that really like shot to the confidence. It took me a long time to dig out of that hole. And so I felt like I always wanted to be better. And I know everyone always says that, but I just felt like I was never good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so it served me well because don't have an ego, I'd like to think. And so I just feel like there's so much power in just being able to observe and be in the environment. And like, I have questioned myself a lot of like, should I have gone back to school? Like, is that going to do me anything? But that's just going to check a box. It's not going to give me the real life experience that I want. I was talking to Rich about this too. It's like, at this point in my life, I think going back to school would probably take me a few steps back, unless I want to go into like professional or college sports, because that will
Mm-hmm.
check a box for that. But it's not going to
Yeah.
it's going to take me 2 years back maybe of like getting the in-person experience that I want.
Yeah.
So I think just being open-minded is the best way to really figure out like your real, like, to find the like equation and the recipe maybe of like your full potential, because I like to take bits and pieces from other people and kind of make it my own. And I just think like being also open-minded, allows people to want to share more with you.
Mm. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's a bar.
That was an absolute bar. I was gonna sit with that for a second.
That's a bar.
That was a bar. Write that one down. No, I absolutely love that. So like, what would be your advice to coaches to be a little more open-minded? Like, what are some things they can start to like practically do in their own lives to get to the point, or like work towards the point to where you're at now, knowing that like you're not a finished product. We're all not finished products, right? This is all a journey. This is all a process. But how can we get coaches to sort of kickstart that process to be a
Yeah.
little more open-minded?
I just think you really need to check yourself, because if you think you know all the answers, like, there's something wrong there, because there's like, the answers are not always going to be there. And so like, we're problem solvers, right? And so I feel like if you're really comfortable with where you are, that's great. But you have to like think about how many times have I been uncomfortable, like within like the past however long. Like, have you grown at all? And if you haven't gotten to a different point, or you haven't challenged yourself, then that's when I would kind of check myself. If you're not where you want to be, are you on the path to where you want to be? Are you getting uncomfortable at all? Because I think that's kind of like the way that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like my biggest piece of advice though is just to kind of like put yourself out there, and again, be uncomfortable, and like make opportunities happen for yourself, because people most of the time are not like, you're not going to get anywhere without asking, I think. And like, if you ask and someone says no, then that's fine. Or if you ask and you don't get a email back, that's also fine. Like, that's happened a lot to me. So like, trying to get volunteer experience is super hard, but it's really about like networking and building connections. And so I think that's why Instagram can be great. Of just like, I got to meet y'all through Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where we met? Guess so.
Maybe, I think so, or maybe we
Maybe.
met at the no, not the mentor.
That's for sure. We for sure met on Instagram.
Yeah,
Mm.
you were still coaching.
Feels like years ago. It was like a lifetime ago. I forget what it's like to coach.
Going back, I'm just curious. Why do you think people are not open-minded?
I think people want to feel like they have the answers. Like, it's just more comfortable.
Mm.
You know? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I was thinking about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where it's like, when you think you're an expert, you actually don't know anything, or you know very, very little about the topic. So some people call that like the peak of Mount Stupid. And then you go through this process that Emma talked about, where it's like you get uncomfortable, you kind of open yourself up to more information, and then you start to realize, okay, maybe I don't have all the answers. But I think I think I'd have to, and maybe some of it's ego driven. Maybe some of it is trying to place yourself in the market, or in the social media space, like feeling like an expert, or trying to put off that you are an expert. Because I mean, I've 1000% been there, but like it might not, at least for me in my experience, like it might not have helped me get the most clients. It might not have helped me get the most followers, but it's helped me have the most impact when I'm like, hey, I don't know, but I'm gonna figure it out. Like I can't say for certain, but I'm going to try something, and we're gonna learn, and we're gonna see. Like, that's not sexy, that's not cool, but it's like super impactful.
Well, I'm going to say that is cool and that makes you a good coach. Honestly. Like, I'm going to ask you all a question. Do you guys ever have like a client ask you a question and you just don't know the answer?
Oof. I was actually literally this morning, I was like, we could do a whole show on this topic. But JT, I'll let you go because I'm curious.
Most, if not all, questions they ask me, I don't know.
But that is so great. Like, the fact that we can sit here and say that we don't know everything means that we're humans.
And
Yeah.
I say I don't know because I don't really know what they're trying to ask. So I think that's why people think of me as like the guy who always asks questions. Like, I've heard, like, why does he always ask questions? And it's mainly because, like, is the question that you're asking me really the question that you're asking me?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're asking me what's the best bicep exercise, I don't know. What is it you're trying to do? Right? Or like those kind of things come to mind. But yeah, and I think that's to your point of like, it's a never ending process of learning, right? You just have to continue to learn because in turn, you're the teacher if you just continue to learn, which is something tough to really grasp. And I think about that all the time. Like I meet coaches who are just not open minded, and if they are, only about certain things, right? And I'm always curious of like, why is this person not receptive to any new ideas? Right. So that's big that you call that out of like uncomfortable, or being uncomfortable gets you to the place that you want to be. And if you can sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and say, are you at the place you want to be? If not, you're probably too comfortable and you need to check yourself, as what Fitty
Check yourself.
says, to get there, right? So I like that. I like that a lot.
So this past year I got to help out with Kraken training camp, and I was so uncomfy, like, just because I obviously, like, that's huge, and I just haven't been in that setting before, but it was so great. Like, afterwards I was like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. I learned so much. And I going into it, I had never done like most of that testing stuff. I learned so much from that, but I got back to my job and I was like, wow, I'm comfy again. But it's good. It's like, I don't know, it's like little baby steps. Like each little time that you're uncomfortable, you're taking a few steps forward. That's what it feels like.
And like, it almost mirrors like human adaptation, right? It's like you get stress and then you respond like positively. You adapt to that stress in some meaningful way. So it's like you get uncomfortable and then you grow personally, professionally, or whatever it might be, right? It's like, so that's like, I don't know, that's what kept coming to mind when you're talking about this. But like for you, it sounds like time and time and time again, it's just like put yourself in a position to be uncomfortable.
Right.
And like good things are going to come out of it every time.
Absolutely. It doesn't feel great in the midst of it. Like, you're like, whoa, I really don't know a lot. What am I doing? But then you come out of it and then you have that, you've got that information. Also, I think you should trademark this, Phil, and you should make this, like, instead of like gas periodization, you should do like a model for growth. And it's like that little like baseline, then stimulus, and then like you kind of dig yourself down, and then it goes.
Yeah. It's like you get the uncomfortable, you get like the ego hit, it drops down,
Yeah,
then you come back up, you learn something.
I love
Telling you.
that.
But
Trademark TM.
I think what I'm hearing from all your uncomfortable experiences is like there's intent behind each one of those, right? Intent to
Yes.
learn. Like
Yeah.
it's not a matter of just going just to be uncomfortable. I can go to jail right now and be like, that's the worst place
You
in the
probably
world.
learn hella. You would learn hella in jail, JT. You
I
wise.
would, but I mean, like I can't come back out after that,
Barred up.
right? But I think the point is like if your intent is to learn and to keep an open mind, there are places that you probably have to be or go to get some information that you're looking for, right? So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, also just like to kind of I guess tie this together, it's like a lot of the people that I, look at are also that are well established didn't just start there.
Mm.
And so like it's something that I've learned not to compare myself to
Mm-hmm.
because they've all started doing the same stuff we all started doing. And then it's a matter of like how long do you hang around and stay in this field and continue to do this cycle that we
Mm-hmm.
just been talking about.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there's probably like young students out there looking at us or you or coaches listening. They're like, I want to get to that point. Where are you? And I think it, like you said, it's a cycle of we all started somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
God, we're gonna have to have you back on to talk about making a career in this industry.
That'd be
Like
fun.
that is as a strength and conditioning lifer, and I make fun of my friends who have bailed from medical device sales. Something that we should definitely talk about. But JT, you want to try to land this plane on a light note?
On a light
with
note,
a little rapid fire.
Always a light note. You ready for the rapid fire,
I was
Emma?
about this one.
This is a new thing that
Let's go.
that we're trying out. So just to get everybody a little more of your personality and see a little bit more of you. So you ready?
I have no choice. Yes.
All right. You're
That's a good
very
point.
correct there. You're very
That's a good point. You're locked in this.
I could just end this call now.
We'll call you back. If you had one exercise or movement to do for the rest of your life, what would it be?
All right. Well, this is just my favorite one. So I'm just gonna say this one. Probably trap bar deadlift.
I knew you were gonna go there.
Okay.
I knew it.
That was
Yeah?
easy.
I knew it.
Okay. And feel free to explain after each one or not. It's a rapid fire. You could just say.
Feel strongest in that one.
Oh,
fair.
I like that.
Okay.
It's kind of a body thing too, if you think about it. You got those shoulders, you got those traps, you got quads, glutes.
I trap bar deadlifted yesterday. My traps feel like absolute shit right now. That's why I keep moving around. Traps like absolute shit.
You gotta do more shrugs, bro.
I gotta do something. I gotta do something.
Upper body or lower body training?
Ooh. Lower body.
Lower body. Okay.
I hesitate though because I just love like some juicy arms.
Wow.
I don't hate arms. Like I do enjoy upper body day.
Okay.
But I'll say legs. I'm trying to get some thighs and some glutes.
Likewise. Tell me the secret.
Trying to get 10 thighs.
What did I was like, these chicken thighs are now drumsticks or something? Yeah. Drumsticks.
Endurance or strength training?
Can I do both?
Nope.
So I'm an endurance person, but I'm really enjoying the strength right now. I'm gonna go ahead and say strength.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Getting my body right, man.
I love it. Okay, last one. What career would you be in if you weren't in the career you're in now?
So not fitness at all.
Nothing in the industry.
Whoa. I don't know. I asked my boyfriend, I'm like, could I do tech? But I hate, and he's like, you could do something, I'm sure. So I don't think it'd be tech.
Okay.
I probably might be a therapist.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, mental health is a big thing for me. So I think I would do that.
Okay.
Hey, in some sessions we are lightweight therapists,
Lightweight.
to a degree.
That's
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed psychology in my undergrad. And so I dabbled in those thoughts of going that route, but here I am.
Here we are.
Yeah, those
Hey,
are good questions.
There's still time. There's still time. Thank you. Yeah,
Nice.
Good
I'm a lifer. I'm in here for life.
great answers. Great answers. Hey, before we land this plane, before Phil lands it, what takeaway message would you want to give to your audience that's listening to this? What would you want to give them?
I'm going to say put yourself out there, first of all. If you want to start, you got to start and put yourself out there in the world, even if you're talking to a brick wall. And I'd also follow that up with kind of like what I already said earlier of like asking and reaching out, even if that means you don't get a response, because that happens to me all the time. Like I'll ask people like, hey, can we talk? And I can learn like where you got to where you are. And some people don't respond, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know? And then some people do, and then you build great connections. So I'd say those two things. Oh, and then also just like get out of your own way. Just get out of it. No one's stopping you but yourself.
Love it.
Love
Closed mouths don't get fed, and get out of your own way.
That feels like every time I tell Emma that I'm afraid to post on Instagram, and she's like, "Bro, just post. Stop it. You're being an idiot." We have this conversation monthly.
Listen,
Literally
I'm
monthly.
in my own head, and then I'm like, oh, this post didn't do well. Am I stupid? Am I like not good? But it's like not everyone is gonna do great. Plus, every post is an experiment. That's what it is. It's not a reflection of yourself.
God, that's such a good way to frame it. I'm right there. That's a good way to
did
frame.
some self-work earlier this year on this, so
That's a good way to frame. I love that. I love that. Speaking of IG, Emma, where can people find you?
On Instagram, Fitty with Schmitty. Follow me if you'd like.
Great educational content. Some good laughs in there as well. We did not talk about that, but some good laughs.
I like to be silly. That's one thing. Also, like I forgot to mention on that, like takeaways is like just be yourself. Because for a long time I thought I had to be serious, but I'm just kind of weird and I like to be silly. I don't know, and so it's just be yourself.
Love it.
Love it.
Be authentic. JT, where can the people find you?
CoachJT.mp3
or hey, at Pushin Performance on IG. Pushin no G. Real G's moving silence. Pushin Performance. And then you can find me at Nashville on IG. Also, that's Pushin Performance on YouTube as well for video of the episode as well. But dang, Emma, thank you so much again. This is awesome. Your IG, your brother's song on Spotify, all the love we showed, that's all going to be in the show notes. So y'all can click through that, get all that information. But yeah, if you like this episode, show love how you're supposed to. Give Emma a follow, give us a follow, like and subscribe, share it with your friends, your family, people you just met. But yeah, Emma, this is awesome. We're definitely going to have you back on again to talk about, I don't know, I feel like we talk about a million things. But thank you so much.
Y'all, thank y'all so much. I've been looking forward to this, and you guys are just the goats. So just really an honor to be here in your presence. And I just feel like I want to talk to you guys so much more. So we have to do this again.
1000%.
Thanks for having me.
Hey.
We will.
All right.
Sure.